If the techniques that we're trying to utilize are not immediate, then we don't have practical application in a musical setting, because music, it's a time-based art form. How to know the notes very quickly on the fretboard. I'm not talking about how to memorize them quickly. I'm talking about how to know them quickly. So for example, I don't know, if I called out a random note like F on the A string would be right here. I don't have a, there's the amplifier. Also, if you're playing along at home, my guitar is tuned up a half step right now, so this actually sounds as an F sharp, but I'm playing an F note on the fretboard. Sorry if that's confusing. Let me get back to the material at hand. We want to be able to play these notes quickly, right? So let's think of another one like G sharp on the B string, right here, right? I'm checking it with the octaves, but I don't need the octave to find the note. I can just prompt the note and I can play it immediately. How about F on the D string? Boom, right there, right? So on and so forth. And I can do that with any of the notes on any of the strings because I've practiced all this stuff. So that's what this video is about, is being able to play these notes quickly. Here's the deal. Is in order to play stuff quickly on stage, we need to spend a lot of time in the practice room practicing these concepts very intensely. And this push and pull between the work that we do on stage and the work that we do in the practice room is always there. It's always something that we're navigating as guitar players. It's not just with memorizing notes, it's with playing songs, it's with improvising over certain situations. The more work that we do in the practice room, the easier it is for us when we're on stage and we're in the moment and we're trying to make music in the moment. The less work that we do in the practice room, the harder it's going to be on stage when we're in the moment, because we're less prepared and we're less comfortable with these principles. So what I have to tell you is that there is no easy way to memorize the fretboard, especially when you get to the point of knowing all the notes very quickly. The only way to memorize the fretboard is a lot of work, a lot of practice, and that's why hardly anyone does it, because it takes a lot of work and a lot of practice. A lot of videos on YouTube and a lot of guitarists will tell you that you really only need to memorize 1 or 2 strings, and then you can understand what the octaves are and you can figure out the other 6 strings via octaves. But the thing is that if you're figuring out notes on the B string, for example, by octaves, it takes you a second. So like if we're thinking of the G note on the B string, and you're gonna find that via octave, you start here on the low G, up an octave, right? So it's 2 octaves away. If you're like in the practice room or having a conversation with another guitarist, it's not a big deal to take a second and, go through the octaves in your head and figure out where that note is. But if you're on stage and you're playing with the band and you're really trying to, okay, where's that G note, because you're trying to orient yourself for the next part of the song, or playing over the next chord, and you happen to be in this part of the neck, so you want that G on the B string. If you have to take a second to think about what the octaves are, then once you find the G note, that musical moment has already passed you. Depending on how fast the song is, the entire chord that you're trying to play over could be already gone at that point. That's why we want to have this information really immediate. We want to be able to think of the note, think of whatever string that we're on, and be able to play it immediately so that we can have actual practical application in a musical situation. So the way that I do this with my students in my guitar program is I've created all of these exercises that prompt you with certain notes, and then you play those notes on certain strings, and we learn it 1 string at a time. So you start with just the E string, and then you do the same process on just the B string, and then you do the same process on just the G string, and so on and so forth. And then very slowly we start to put those strings together. So you can do like 2 strings, like the E string and the B string, and you can alternate between the prompts. And then another set of 2 strings, and eventually sets of 3 strings and 4 strings, and we really just baby step by baby step get to the point where at the end of the 2-month program, everyone is being tested across all 6 strings, and it's super random, so you can't anticipate what the next prompt is going to be, and you're very confidently playing all the notes across all the fretboard on all the strings without having to use octaves or any other sort of like a shape hack, which again, when we use these hacks to figure out the notes on the fretboard, it takes a second, right? And we want these things to be as immediate as possible. Basically, if the techniques that we're trying to utilize are not immediate, then we don't have practical application in a musical setting, because music, it's a time-based art form. It's it's really important that we have access to these tools exactly when we want to have access to them. The other thing is people like to compare learning notes on the piano and learning notes on the fretboard. The piano has this nice geometric shape to it, in that there's the white keys and the black keys, and the black keys are in specific groupings so that you can memorize what the names of the notes are in relation to which black key you can see, like, geometrically. But the thing is if you've ever seen one of those pictures of people trying to, like, color coordinate the notes, or even just make, like, black and white keys, like, on the fretboard, it doesn't make any sense. Like, that shape, of course, you could think of things in a cage system. So you could think of the C chord and the A chord and the G chord and the E chord. But then at that point, you're still figuring things out by octaves, because you're figuring it out based off of the shape rather than knowing the note for itself, exactly what it is. Also, if you're playing a run where you're coming from the top and you're moving down, then thinking of a shape that starts on the bottom and moving up, these are all just little chinks in our armor. Where, of course, like, you can play guitar wonderfully and have some chinks in your armor. It's like we all have holes that we're trying to address in our guitar playing. But if you're the kind of guitarist that really wants to take this seriously and be as good as you possibly can, then the more of these holes that we can fill, the more perspectives that we can have on the fretboard and the information that we're trying to ingest, honestly, the better. So yeah, those images where people put things like people put things on their fretboard, it does the geometric approach. It doesn't make sense like it does on the piano, because patterns don't repeat because of the tunings of the strings. Honestly, like, I've talked to lots of people about this. I've helped lots of students memorize the fretboard. I've been playing the guitar for quite a while now. The only way to really memorize the fretboard is the hard way. You just have to do it. You have to do it one string at a time, and then you have to put the strings together, and you just have to memorize it flat out. I wish there was an easier way. I'm sorry. There are things about the guitar that are easier than other instruments, so we have it easier in other aspects. But when it comes to memorizing the notes on our instrument, unfortunately, it's difficult. And again, that's why no one does it, because it's difficult and it's hard work. But this is how I would encourage you to do it, is one string at a time. But yeah, this is one of the things that we cover in my guitar program, in my 2-month guitar program. So if you'd like some of my help and my mentorship with memorizing the fretboard and understanding music theory and understanding how to see all these chord shapes and scale degrees and all that stuff all over the fretboard of the guitar, you can check out this video that's on one of the corners here. It has a lot of information about my program and some of the stuff that I do. But let me know in the comments below the method that you're using right now for memorizing the fretboard, and let me know if you're happy with the progress that you've been making. Because if you're happy with the progress that you're making, awesome. Like, that's fantastic. I'm happy for you. But if you're not happy with the progress that you're making and you're tired of it taking a second for you to really play the notes on the fretboard like where you want them to be, then we can address that. We can work harder, we can dig deeper, and we can become the guitar players that we really want to become. So yeah, that is how to know the notes quickly. There's no easy way around it, unfortunately, but hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm telling you this because I love you. All right, see you in the next video.